Hello, my friends. How are you doing? It's good to see you again. It's been a few days now, and I'm really excited. Many of you probably know this joke about the Jews strand on a deserted island, and when he's finally discovered after many years, his rescuer find him on an island with two magnificent structures. They ask him, "What are these structures?" And he goes, "These are synagogues." Go, well, okay, we can understand why building a synagogue, but why building the second one? He goes, well, one is the one I go to, the other I would never set foot in. So today, this is where our story began. Okay, and what's here and what's going on today in the Jewish world, in Israel, in the world in general. This is what we're going to try and realize on this session. Stay with me after the little logo, and we'll be back. Hey, how are you? It's Ron again. I'm Ron Sinai. For those who don't know me, I've been involved in Israel tourism industry for 3 decades. This year, we founded the Sinai Connection, which enables people around the world to invest in Israel, whether it's real estate, high tech, charity, or more. Our journey today is going to take us to a different place. Our government is getting settled and we start to see differentiations as for the Jewish issues and more. For the first time in a very long time, this government does not incorporate in it the traditional partners of Israeli governments, which are the ultra-Orthodox groups and parties. And what we're going to try and understand today is a little bit about the history of Judaism, Israel, Zionism, and what brought things to be what's happening today in Israel. How is that going to affect our life here? And what are going to be the differences in the understanding of the local situation in the country? So I do want to start at the beginning. I want to start with this concept that we refer to as rabbinical Judaism. Rabbinical Judaism actually started in the first century. As the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem happened, what happened was that we actually creating a new religion or a new phase within Judaism. And when I say a new phase within Judaism, because up until that point, worshiping Judaism beliefs was happening via the temple, concluding it by coming to Jerusalem, by making pilgrimage to Jerusalem, by sacrificing in the temple, having a very sturdy and strong body of priesthoods that actually performs some of the laws and mitzvahs that were mentioned in the Jewish law and the Jewish traditions. On the first century, we have the destruction of the temple, hence there is no more temple to go to. As a result for that, we're having a growth of scholars, the Pharisees, that actually started to establish a understanding of rabbinical Judaism through Mishnah and Talmud, is explaining how we can actually alter those beliefs into our daily life with not having the temple in. We refer to those as the early halachic world, creating those halacha laws that actually gives us the base of modern Judaism that we know today. As this Judaism evolved and Jews had to disperse from this country through the help of the Romans, we found Jews living in different areas of the world, whether it's Jews who are living in Europe that eventually will be referred to as Ashkenazi Jews, those Jews who went to Spain, North Africa, and the East that we'll refer to as Sephardi Jews. Spain in Hebrew is Sfarad, therefore Sephardi Jews. The Jews that went to Yemen and Jews who went to Ethiopia, that we already spoke a little bit about, Beta Israel. Jews who came to India, the Cochin Jews that actually established their life over there. And when we're referring to all of these, we're still referring to the same concept of rabbinical Jews. Okay, they lasted as is and still is throughout the world. In the phrase of the 18th century, we're starting to see something evolving in Europe, mainly in Europe, but they actually moved from there to other areas like the US and Israel. We call them the Hasidic Jews. It's the Hasidic Judaism or Hasidic movement. It's part of what we call today Haredi Judaism. Haredi meaning they are more afraid of losing their connection to Judaism, more strict Orthodox Judaism. And they evolved or revived at the 18th century in Europe. They spread rapidly through Eastern Europe. We do know that among them were the Misnagdim, who opposed the Hasidic way. And at the end of the day, the idea of the Hasidic is to congregate surrounding a rabbi in a shtetl, which made the process of being a Jew a little bit more reachable for the regular John Doe Jew living in that area in Europe. As a result to that, we found a sect or some kind of a division between the Hasidic and the Misnagdim. Eventually, we refer to both of them as Haredi Judaism. Today, and I'm moving back into today, in Israel, these will be the Haredi parties like Agudat Israel and Shas and others, Ashkenazic and Sephardi, Haredi Jews. They're predominantly Hasidic, but all of them will be Haredi Jews. And that was in the 18th century. Most of these live in Europe and Israel today. A large sum of those Jews were perished in the Shoah, in the Holocaust, due to the fact that they were living in Europe, in Eastern Europe predominantly, and we got a little leftovers of this massive Jewish history. In the 19th century, we find a new sect within Judaism. We'll refer to them as the Reform movement. Late 18th century, it started in Europe. It was swept by a group of intellectuals. We call them the Enlightenment era. It's a social and a political movement that actually grew into it, and understanding that I want to maintain my traditions, but I want to live in a secular, more modern way. Reform Judaism basically is a major Jewish denomination today. Half of the Jews in the world will be Reform Jews. The emphasis is actually to be more plural. It was established in the 19th century in Germany, and with the years, the movement have adopted policies of inclusiveness, bringing in those who just want to be referred to as Jews, inviting as many possible people as they can into the religion to prevent from a major assimilation into Christianity that happened in Europe in those years. And therefore, there is no strict Jewish laws that are binding these people as much as the will to be part of this Jewish faith and Jewish beliefs. The conservative Judaism, also known as the Masorti Judaism, is something in between the Orthodox Judaism and the Reform Judaism by accepting the rabbinical halachic way, but adopting it closer to what we can actually live in on daily lives. And all of that actually leads us to the same era of the end of the 19th century and the beginning of Zionism as a movement that actually was created as a secular movement, as a secular ideology that says that Jews, through self-determination, auto-emancipation, should and have the right to gather or see themselves as a nation and go back to their homeland, Israel. As part of that, it created a large rift. The Orthodox and conservative movement saw in it as something that is not right, because who are you to actually push in the secular notions into reality? While Reform looked at Zionism and says, it's too much religious. I don't need to be connected to Zion. I don't need the land to be part of the Jewish people. I am where I am as a Jew, hence I don't need to be part of the Zionist movement. Upon Zionism moving into Israel, the Jews, Orthodox Jews who lived in the country, actually eventually understood that they have to be part of this game. And by being part of this game meant that they actually joined in the Zionist movement. In some occasions in modern life, especially today, the Orthodox, modern Orthodox movement have embedded into the Zionism even the ideas of messianic return into the land as part of the prophecy of Isaiah of returning, bringing back the Jews into the country. This ideology called Zionism and built of Israel have created a will out of those early Zionists to actually incorporate in it or in the system, in the government, those religious parties, whether it was the at the beginning the Mizrahi movement, which is a more modern Orthodox agricultural people, working labor, religious Jews, and of course the traditional old population, old Jewish population of the land, the Haredik movements or the Haredik parties that join in the governments from day one of the establishment of the State of Israel. Unfortunately, throughout the stages of Israel existence, the reform movement was not taking part of the Israeli politics until basically, I'd say 1973, or some say 1967, with the understanding that, yes, Jews still need this place back as home and they want to be part of it. At that point, we're talking about already 25 years of not being part of it. Coming into the system here wasn't easy. I'd say it was hard till non-existing. And even though there is a constant growth of pluralist Judaism, Reform and conservative Judaism within Israel, the still predominant power, political and other, within the state of Israel will be the Orthodox world. If it's the chief rabbinate world that is dominated by the Orthodox world, or the local city or municipal rabbinical world, most of the synagogues in Israel, over 95% of them, will be Orthodox in one way or another, modern Orthodox, Hasidic Orthodox, Haredic of others, but it's going to be an Orthodox synagogue. I can tell you of my own story when I, for the first time, was exposed to non-Orthodox Jewish traditions. It was shock to me to be able to see men and women praying together. I would never even figure out that there is something like that as somebody who grew up in Israel. I wasn't even exposed to that. So in a way, I can say that in Israel in 2021, the biggest change in this government is the understanding that within this specific government, one thing is happening. One thing amazing is happening. The ultra-Orthodox are not part of the government. Yes, we do have modern Orthodox within the government. I say that even in a very prestige place within the government. Bennett is a modern Orthodox. He is an Orthodox Jew, but he's modern Orthodox. But next to him sits Gilad Kariv, who's a Reform rabbi, who's representing the Reform movement in the Knesset for the first time in the history of Israel. Now, not having the extreme Orthodox Haredic within the government opens up a gateway or a window for changes that until now, due to a status quo that started already in the establishment of the country, are trying to be changed, starting with issues, for example, of enlisting into the army for the Haredi groups. One issue about it is that when Ben Gurion established Israel, he said that since, or due to the fact that the Holocaust actually perished most of the ultra-Orthodox students or scholars, they should grant them the ability not to join the army and study. At the beginning, it was a few thousand. They grew up to be hundreds of thousands. The problem with that is that if you are not uh, partaking in this notion of joining the army, it means one simple thing: you cannot go to work, because as long as you are not serving in the army and you're studying, your obligation is to study. Okay, and if you stop studying, you'll go to the army, and they didn't want to go to the army. Now there is an understanding that not all of them want to continue studying all their lives. Hence, I do need to bring them into society somehow. And there is now negotiations on how to allow them, after a certain period of time, to skip the army and do get education for business oriented or work oriented, so can actually support themselves and not live as welfare on the shoulders of the rest of the population. One issue. Other issue, Shabbat. We have had several situations that the Israeli government was actually changed due to Shabbat issues, whether it was transferring of an electrical component in the middle of Shabbat that actually brought or tumbled a coalition, or any other options. And today, in the government existing, we have a new Minister of Transportation, Merav Michaeli, who are trying to work as hard as she can to approve public transportations over the weekends, saying that there's a lot of people that doesn't own a car and they do need a public transportation. As for today, Israel does not have public transportation in Shabbat besides taxis. Okay, no buses, no trains, none of these exist, and that forms an issue. What will happen with it? We don't know. What we do know is that it shifts a little bit of things. It creates some turmoil under the surface. I do know that the government have said that they're not going to breach everything and break the status quo. Yet, I do see winds of change. I do see different aspects into things, and maybe this change will be slow, but we're going to see some kind of a movement within what's happening in Israel today. And I do see it as a very, very positive thing. And as I always say, with this positive notion, I want to conclude by, first of all, inviting you all to visit our website. Okay, it's actually going to be wonderful to have you in there. Okay, I do want you to give you the ability to stay connected, stay in touch with the country through the year. Whether you can come here or not, that's another subject to another live that we'll do. I do want you to stay connected. I would love to connect with you. I would love to reveal to you all that this blessed land has to give. See you on the next live broadcast. And in the meanwhile, let's stay connected. Have a great day. Goodbye.